Well, good morning, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome in from across the continent and beyond for another very exciting Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants broadcast. I want to give a special shout out to our grade 3s at Bayside Public School, the most over-the-top enthused grade 3s I've ever run across in my entire career. So way to go for being here again, guys. You guys all rock. For those of you new to us, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, science to classrooms around the world. You can check out all of our 4,000 plus programs on our YouTube channel. So much to explore and discover there. Now, back in February, for the second time, we featured the amazing folks at the Philip J. Currie Dino Museum. It's an incredible place. I hope everyone takes the chance to check it out virtually or in person if you can. And when we finished the broadcast, they said, Jesse, we've got this super cool thing called April Archosaur Absurdity. Do you want to do a broadcast? I was like, I want to stop you right there. That sounds amazing. Archosaurs are great. April's my birth month. I'm absurd. It's all my favorite things at once. So we are going to learn about some really cool stuff at the museum. We're going to learn about this amazing activity that you guys can get involved in wherever you're joining from. And I'm going to stop spoiling it and saying anything else because I'm going to bring in Dr. Emily Bamforth, our paleontologist extraordinaire. Welcome back to the broadcast, and nice to see you again.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Welcome back, or welcome for the first time to the Philip J. Currie Dinosaur Museum. We are here in Wembley, Alberta. If you don't know where that is northwest Alberta, just outside the city of Grand Prairie. And I'm standing here in our fossil preparation lab. So this is a perfect place to talk about a really cool program that we're running in April. We call it April Archosaur Absurdity. April Archosaur Absurdity is based loosely on what's called March Madness. So March Madness is a basketball tournament. If you like basketball, you might like March Madness. I'm pretty short though. I don't do basketball very well, but I got really into something that the University of Arizona took on called March Mammal Madness. Now, March Mammal Madness was also a tournament, like March Madness, between different types of mammals. So these mammals would meet each other in an environment, and they'd have an encounter, and one of them would win and go on to kind of battle the next mammal in the bracket. So we decided a couple of years ago, actually during the pandemic, that we wanted to do the same kind of thing, but with prehistoric animals. And so April Archosaur Absurdity was born. So April Archosaur Absurdity is basically a tournament between animals that we call archosaurs. Now, what is an archosaur, you might add? Archosaur is the big group of animals that includes dinosaurs, but not just dinosaurs. It also includes crocodiles. So like the crocodiles we have today, but also the big giant ones we had in the past, as well as the pterosaurs, the flying reptiles like pterodactyls. So those three types of animals make up a group called archosaurs. So April Archosaur Absurdity is basically a tournament between different archosaurs. And so when we talk about, so these archosaurs, they're in battles. We call them battles with each other, but they're not really battles. So if you're familiar with the series Who Would Win, basically it's as if these types of animals met each other in their environment. What would happen if they had an encounter? So this could be a predatory encounter, like one could eat the other, but one could also chase the other one off, and all kinds of things can happen. And so we decide all of our encounters are based on science, based on what we know about these animals, based on the fossils that we find. So April Archosaur Absurdity is fun. It's a cool way to explore dinosaurs and other archosaurs, but it's also a way to learn about these animals in their environment. So one of the things we do for April Archosaur Absurdity is we create this nifty little guide called our Creature Guide. So the Creature Guide will tell you, it has all of these kind of spotlights on our competitors for that year. So every year we have 8 competitors. It'll tell you who the competitors are, where they come from, the time period they're from, as well as kind of some of their neat features, some of the cool little facts about each of our archosaurs. But the Creature Guide has other things as well. So one of the challenges that we have with our archosaurs that the March Mammal Madness people don't have is that our archosaurs come from different time periods. So something like T-Rex could come from the Cretaceous period, but if it's up against something like Concavenator, which is from the Jurassic, we have to get a little bit creative. How would these animals that would never have met in real life, how would they encounter each other? So the first thing we have to decide is where are these battles going to take place? Are they, so if we have a dinosaur from the Cretaceous and a dinosaur from the Jurassic, does the battle take place in the Jurassic period or does it take place in the Cretaceous period? And so we basically got around that by saying all of our battles, no matter what the Archosaurs are, they take place here in Grand Prairie, but back in the Cretaceous period. So let me show you what that looked like. We have a nifty little guide here in our creature guide. Find the page. So first, one of the first pages in our creature guide is this explanation about what the battleground would have looked like. So here you can see an image. This is what Grand Prairie would have looked like about 74 million years ago when our dinosaurs that we dig up here lived. So this is the environment that all of the battles would take place in. And so you can read the explanation and it will tell you, how warm it was, how wet it was, what kind of environment it was. And this is the battleground basically for all of our battles. And you have to remember that some of our dinosaurs are going to be well adapted to this kind of environment. Like the T-Rex, for example, lived about 10 million years later than the dinosaurs we find here, but lived in a similar environment. So it's going to be well adapted to an environment like Late Cretaceous Grand Prairie. But if we have a dinosaur like the Velociraptor that lived in the Mongolian desert, and you suddenly throw it into Cretaceous Grand Prairie where it's very warm and wet, it may not do so well. So these are things that we encourage people to think about when they're trying to guess who is going to win that battle. So, I just want to give you an example of what one of these battles look like. I'm going to read you part of a battle that we had last year that we put together. So let's start right now, introducing the two Archosaurs that are in this battle. So one of them is T-Rex. Everyone, of course, is familiar with T-Rex, one of the most famous dinosaurs of all time, the largest land predator that ever lived. And one of the things that we do with April Archosaur Absurdity is we work with paleo artists, so people that basically bring dinosaurs to life. So this was the image that we used for the T-Rex last year. This was done by a Canadian paleo artist called Caitlin Lindblad. And it kind of shows T-Rex in its environment. So T-Rex was our first competitor in this battle. The other competitor was this horned dinosaur called Anchiornis. And this was another one of Caitlin's illustrations. So you can see Anchiornis looks a little like a Triceratops. Sorry, not Anchiornis, Anchiceratops. Anchiceratops looks a little like Triceratops, but it's got a little bit of a different fill. It has a little bit of a different horns on its head. And one of the things we try and do with April Archosaur Absurdity is introduce people to dinosaurs and other archosaurs that they may not have heard about. So not many people have heard about Anchiceratops. So April Archosaur Absurdity last year was a great way for people to learn about this cool little ceratopsian from Alberta. So here we have our two competitors. And again, their battleground is Late Cretaceous Grand Prairie. T-Rex is a Cretaceous dinosaur. Anchiceratops is also a Cretaceous dinosaur. So these two dinosaurs, they're actually well adapted for that Late Cretaceous environment. And so let me read you a little bit about this battle. The sun sinks low in the sky across a clearing in a light dappled forest. It is springtime in Late Cretaceous Grand Prairie, and the days are already more than 15 hours long. For Anchiceratops, a horned dinosaur from Cretaceous Alberta, springtime means getting ready to rumble. Every spring, males go head to head, literally, as they compete for potential mates. On this evening, the sounds of the forests, the bird song and the buzz of trillions of mosquitoes is broken by the bellows and grunts of two Anchiceratops bulls facing off. One of the bulls is older and larger and has laid claim to this territory for nearly 8 years. His opponent is a young upstart, smaller in body size, but already sporting an impressive set of bridle horns at the edge of his head shield. Time and again, the Anchiceratops back up, stare each other down, and then charge each other. So far, neither of them has shown any signs of backing down. But the two bulls are so engrossed in their battle that they haven't noticed that they have an audience. The 8-ton female T-Rex has been watching and waiting. The large theropod is from the slightly younger geological time period than Anchiceratops, but she's familiar with Anchiceratops' close cousin, Triceratops. The T-Rex knows from experience that these horned dinosaur battles can go south pretty quickly, leaving one of the competitors grievously injured. So I'm going to leave that as a cliffhanger for you. So we have the two Anchiceratops facing off, and the T-Rex is kind of waiting in the bushes, waiting to see what's going to happen. So if you read the rest of that battle, you can find April Archosaur Absurdity 2024 and find out what happens. So what would happen is the winner of that battle would go on to the next battle and face another Archosaur. So that other Archosaur has also won his last encounter. So that's the basis of April Archosaur Absurdity. And again, it's rooted in science. So we have to think about how well these animals are adapted for the environment that they're competing in. The other thing we get people to think about is factors that may have given one of these animals an edge. So we have this page in our creature guide, and it's called Archosaurs with an Edge. And so some of these animals live in groups, and some of them are solitary. So for example, if we have a herd of Pachyrhinosaurus, which is the dinosaur that we get here, it's pretty unlikely that a big predator would come across just one Pachyrhinosaur. It's more likely to come across a whole herd of them. So that factor is going to influence the interaction between a predator and that type of dinosaur. So those are things we're trying to get people to think about. And then we also have this page from this year as well, kind of brand new. We just added this year. Exciting. Which tells you how well adapted each of the Archosaurs is to the battleground that they're fighting in. So these are all factors that we encourage people to think about when they're thinking about who is going to win the battle. So on the website, we'll talk about it in a bit, but on the website you can go and actually guess which Archosaur you think is going to win the next battle. And you can do that in real time. But now, I want to take you back into the collections area here and talk about our really cool competitors that we have for this year. We're so excited. As the name suggests, we run this in April, so we're just getting ready to start this year. But I want to introduce you to the Archosaurs that will be battling out this year. So if you want to follow me.
Let's go. I can't wait. I'm so excited to meet them.
Big Jurassic Park style doors here.
We should always play the music. It should really feature in every broadcast that we do.
Yeah, for sure. So here we have our lineup of our Archosaurs. And one of the things that we do throughout March is we actually do little introduction videos to each one of our Archosaurs, and we'll post those throughout March. So people get an introduction, a little bit of a kind of a 2-minute segment about the Archosaurs. And this kind of gets them ready to figure out who is going to win those encounters or those battles. But today we're going to talk very briefly about all of them. So our first Archosaur that we have here is one of the most popular dinosaurs of all time. This is one of my personal favorites. This is Triceratops. So Triceratops is a dinosaur from the latest Cretaceous. We think it was actually one of the last non-avians, basically not bird dinosaurs left on the planet before the extinction. Really, really cool animal, one of the horned dinosaurs, the biggest of all the horned dinosaurs. These things could grow to 9 meters long and weigh as much as 6 tons. So this would be a formidable competitor in April Archosaur Absurdity. Interesting thing about Triceratops, while most of the horned dinosaurs live in groups, we think Triceratops was probably solitary, so probably hung up by itself. So our next competitor, also another one of my favorites, really, really cool looking dinosaur. This is Anzu. So Anzu is basically, is named after a bird-like demon from the Mesopotamian culture. This thing is actually pretty big. It would have stood more than kind of 1.5 meters tall. It belongs to a group called the Caenygnathids. Really, really interesting group of animals. They have really short snouts, and they actually have no teeth. So it's really, we don't actually know what Anzu ate. We think it was probably an omnivore, but we don't know because they don't have teeth. So dinosaurs without teeth, it's kind of hard to tell what they ate. But we are pretty sure that Anzu would have been completely covered with feathers. And again, fairly large dinosaur. So another really good competitor for this year.
Emily, before you continue, is it symbolic and foreboding that you knocked over Anzu as you were trying to grab it? Maybe that should be like a hint for us in the thing? No, I'm just kidding. Take that, Anzu.
So another competitor that we have, and another kind of big favorite for this year, is this guy. This is Utah Raptor. So Utah Raptor is from the early Cretaceous of Utah, as the name suggests. If you take a quick look at its feet, you can see that it has that sickle claw. So all of the dinosaurs that we call dromaeosaurs have that sickle claw. So this was one of those, like Velociraptor is also in this group, one of these raptor-like dinosaurs, but Utah Raptor was absolutely enormous for a dromaeosaur. So we think that an adult could have weighed as much as a polar bear. And if that is not terrifying enough, like look at that horrifying face. These things hunted in packs. And we know that because when we find their fossils, we find groups of them together. So really large carnivorous dinosaur. Well, I mean, large for a dromaeosaur, weighed as much as a polar bear, and hunted in packs. So this guy is a very formidable competitor for this year.
So, Dr. Bamforth, really quickly, how tall are we talking here for a Utah Raptor, and how long? Like, if we're trying to visualize it walking beside you, where can we think?
Yeah, so Utah Raptor was about 2 meters long, and would have stood kind of more than 1.5 meters at the hip. So these were the largest of all of the dromaeosaurs.
Sweet.
And also, we think covered in feathers as well.
Very cool.
So terrifying, but also like kind of looking like a chicken.
Fluffy, yeah.
Like a real terror chicken. Another really cute little favorite. Again, this is one that not many people have heard about. So we're again trying to introduce people to some archosaurs they may have not have heard of. This is little Dracopelta. So Dracopelta is a little armored dinosaur, or an ankylosaur, from the late Jurassic period of Spain and Portugal. So this is one of our European dinosaurs. Dracopelta is really cool. The name means dragon shield. Sounds like it's a really kind of scary competitor. This guy was actually pretty small. So, kind of the size of a, small German Shepherd or so. Covered in these spikes. One of the interesting things about Dracopelta is that we don't know if it's one of the ankylosaurs that has a tail club, or if it's one of the ankylosaurs that doesn't have a tail club. It's kind of really, really early on in the ankylosaur family tree. So we're not sure which group it belongs to. And unfortunately, when they found the fossil, they didn't find the tail. So sometimes it has a tail club, sometimes it doesn't. But it's a really cool little animal. So we included this guy because he's really an unusual little creature. So this is, I think, our smallest competitor for this year. Our largest competitor for this year is a sauropod. So I'm pretty excited. This is the first time since I've done AAA where we've actually had a sauropod, or a long-necked dinosaur. So this is a long-necked dinosaur called Lusotitan. And this guy's also from the late Jurassic of Spain and Portugal. And this animal would have been the largest animal in its environment. It could have been 30 meters long and weighed about 30 tons as well. So this was a really, really huge dinosaur. It's one of the brachiosaurs, which means that it has long front legs and short back legs. It also has these kind of like spiky thumb claws on its forelimbs. So just by the sheer size of Lusotitan, this is also a formidable competitor. We also think Lusotitan probably moved in herds as well. So again, another herding dinosaur.
I think I'm voting Lusotitan, even if we have other competitors. That's a big animal. I don't think anything's taken down Lusotitan. That's my April Archosaur Absurdity pick, I think.
Yeah, by far the biggest competitor.
Sweet.
But we also have another very sizable competitor, and another pretty famous one. So this is the Spinosaurus, and many of you will have heard of the Spinosaurus. This is a dinosaur from the early Cretaceous of North Africa. And Spinosaurus is such a weird looking dinosaur. I mean, look at that. It's sort of like half crocodile and like half Dimetrodon. And you can see by the pose here that we actually think it could probably swim as well. So like a very rare example of a swimming dinosaur. Really weird body shape, kind of really low slung with these short little legs. But again, this and a very kind of crocodile-like mouth. So we think that that mouth is actually designed for eating teeth. So this thing got a lot of fame in the Jurassic Park series, particularly Jurassic Park 3, for those of you who are fans, because it was actually bigger than a T-Rex. Its body size is bigger than a T-Rex. So for a long time, people, well, I mean, Jurassic Park kind of made it seem like it was more of a formidable predator until we figured out it probably ate fish. We were like, well, maybe not as scary as a T-Rex, but still quite a formidable competitor. So Spinosaurus was a very large dinosaur. So we're talking about sort of kind of 15 or 16 meters long, probably also weighing kind of 6 or 7 tons as well.
It's a hardy boy. I want to do a quick follow-up on this because I loved Jurassic Park 3 when I was a boy, about the age of our students, and they're one of the coolest animals on planet Earth. One of our first broadcasts we ever did was with Nizar Ibrahim, who's like one of the leading Spinosaur specialists in the world. So if you check out our YouTube channel, and the story of how they found the fossil bed with all the Spinosaurs is one of the coolest things you've ever featured on the broadcast. That's my plug of the day for some other dino action, but what a cool competitor. Thanks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Got a really cool human history as well. Like there was like a skeleton that was in a museum that was bombed during the war, and then they had to wait 100 years before then having a new one. So yeah, got a really cool human story for Spinosaurus as well. So we also this year have got a pterosaur, one of these flying reptiles, and another one of our favorites here. So the flying reptile that we have this year is called Cryodracon. Cryodracon borealis is actually the long name. It means frozen dragon of the north wind.
Yes, the best name ever in the history of Latin names ever. It's so cool. I love it.
So Cryodracon is a Canadian specimen, which is kind of cool. It's known from Dinosaur Provincial Park in southern Alberta. And Cryodracon belongs to a group of pterosaurs that we call the Asdarchids. And the Asdarchids were absolutely ginormous. So they could grow to be literally the size of small aircraft. So we're talking about like a wingspan of like 30 meters. And when they landed, so the terrifying thing about these things is they actually hunted on the ground. So they could fly, they sort of fly around the Cretaceous skies. But when they were hungry, they'd actually land on the ground and they would stalk their prey on the ground. And they had these enormously long, pointed beaks they would basically use for like stabbing things. And when they were on the ground, they basically folded their wing back. So their wing is basically their little finger that's really, really, really elongated. So they'd land on the ground and they would bend that wing back and they'd walk on their hind legs and kind of their knuckles as well. And when they did that, they would actually stand as tall as giraffes. Imagine that. Absolutely terrifying.
Like, I want to stress, we're going to harp on everything you just said there. Imagine, kids, you're watching and a small plane flies overhead and then it lands and it starts walking after you the size of a giraffe. And it's called the Cold Dragon of the North Wind. Prehistoric Planet is an amazing series that features things like this and some of this imagery and sort of casts things like Cryodracon as like a horror movie villain. And they're so fantastic. I can't encourage you enough. If you get the chance to watch Prehistoric Planet, it will change your perspective on Archosaurs forever. What a cool competitor. Very nice.
Yeah. And just to build on that, in Prehistoric Planet, they have two Asdarchids facing off a T-Rex, and the Asdarchid wins. So that kind of gives you a sense of how terrifying these animals would have been. So Cryodracon this year is our pterosaur competitor. And our last competitor this year, and this is the first year we've actually featured this, is our very own Pachyrhinosaurus. So this is the dinosaur that we find here in Grand Prairie. Very special for us. Our species is actually found here and nowhere else in the world. So Pachyrhinosaurus is a horned dinosaur, but instead of having a nose horn, like a Triceratops would, it has this big, huge bony growth on its nose that we call a boss. So that's kind of what makes Pachyrhinosaurus unique. And we think that Pachyrhinosaurus was not only a herding animal, but it moved in these megaherds of thousands of animals. And actually all of these drawers that you see here, I'll pull some out for you. These are all Pachyrhinosaurus bones. So these are all bones from a bone bed that we have really close to our museum here in Wembley. So these are all bones from Pachyrhinosaurus. So we're kind of rooting for the Pachyrhinosaurus. It's kind of our special dinosaur. So as you can see, we have just literally thousands of bones from them. And so we are really, really excited to be featuring Pachyrhinosaurus this year.
As you should. They're such a special creature. And for our students too, I would encourage you, go to our YouTube channel because we've done walkthroughs of the museum. We've talked about Pachyrhinosaurus a lot more. You'll learn a lot on the April Archosaur Absurdity site. So we'll make sure you all have that if you want to play along and root for the Pachyrhinosaurus. But if you want to see it up close and personal, we've done a lot of features on that. And they're a really, really special animal. So very cool, guys.
Yeah. And they are, again, part of AAA this year. So we're pretty excited to have them as a competitor. All right, so let's just go back into the lab here, and we'll talk a little bit about how you can get involved with AAA. So this is our website. So the great thing about AAA is it is almost entirely online, so it doesn't matter where you are, what time of day you want to visit it. You know, if you miss a couple battles, you can always catch up. It is all online. So this is on our website here. It's www.dinomuseum.ca. And this is our April Archosaur Absurdity website. So on this page here, you can scroll through. We have a digital copy of the creature guide there. You can meet the competitors. We'll take a bit of a closer look at that. Those introduction videos I mentioned where we talk about the different competitors and I show you some fossils from each of the competitors. And we also have, for the teachers out there, an educator portal as well. So we actually have lesson plans that are built around April Archosaur Absurdity, so people can incorporate them into their classrooms. So this is our battle bracket for this year. So the first battles will be between, for example, Dracopelta and Utah Raptor. One of those animals will win. The winner will go here. The next battle is Pachyrhinosaurus and Cryodracon. The winner will go there, and then these two will go on to battle each other, and there'll be a winner from that. Same on this side. So one of these two will win, one of these two will win, one of these two will win, and eventually we'll have our final where our last two standing competitors will interact with each other. So this is our the schedule of the battle postings, and so this is March. This is where we are today. And so each of these shows you where the introduction videos are going to be posted. So this week we're posting our last ones, Triceratops today and Lusotitan on Thursday. And then if you go over to April, this shows you where all of the battles are going to be posted. And so for each battle we have what's called a battle poll. So you can check the website and you can guess in battle 1, for example, which competitor do you think is going to win? So there'll be a chance for you to vote on your winner. And then the battle will be posted 2 days later. And as the battle is posted, our bracket will be updated.
Sweet.
Yeah. So a little bit more about our competitors. This is kind of a map of the world that shows you where our competitors are from. So again, we've got a lot from here in North America, but we do have those two from Spain and Portugal and a Spinosaurus from North Africa. And so you can go through and you can highlight each of these archosaurs, and that will bring up kind of some information on it, sort of how big it is relative to a human, the time period it comes from, how you say its name, what it eats, what type of archosaur it is. So this is kind of a really cool thing to scroll through if you want to learn more about those archosaurs. And then we have some neat videos here. We talk a little bit about paleo art. So why it's really important that we're able to visualize dinosaurs, like not just for fun and not just for education, but also for science. So paleo artists kind of help us visualize how we put bones on skeletons so that we can understand animals better. And then we have some frequently asked questions for folks. Yeah, and so that's the website. So we encourage people to go. You can, again, start here in March. You can watch all of the introduction videos for all of the archosaurs. And then beginning in April, you can start voting on those battle polls, and you can fill in, see the brackets as they're filled in to see who is going to be our winner for April Archosaur Absurdity 2025.
Ah, how cool is that? Thank you so much, Dr. Bamforth, for the tour, our introduction to some really incredible Archosaurs, and all the guides to play along. So, students, again, we're going to make sure anyone who's registered to this program has that link. We've been sharing it throughout the broadcast. There's so much fun to be had, so much to learn, and some really awesome picks this year. So, we're going to dive in with questions. What do you want to know about April Archosaur Absurdity? What do you want to know about some of our competitors? Any queries you have, I'm going to give our live classes just a second to put their thinking caps on. YouTubers, you can start sharing there as well. And one of the things that we had early on in the broadcast is, how do we know so much about these dinosaurs? You're setting it up where we're basing it on the science of what we know about these creatures. How do we know that these creatures are in packs, say? Can you give us an example of something like that?
Yeah, really good question. And some of these things are actually not super easy to tell in the fossil record. As I say to the school groups that come here, dinosaurs are extinct. So we can't do things, like set up camera traps or, put tracking devices on them or anything. They're unfortunately all extinct. So everything we know about these animals comes from the fossil record. So in terms of whether we know they're solitary or what's called gregarious, like if they live in a herd or hunt in a pack, that comes from whether or not their bones are found together or isolated. So Utah raptor, for example, most of the time they're found together in a group, which suggests that they live together and they die together. Same with Pachyrhinosaurus. Every time we find Pachyrhinosaurus lacusti, which is our species, they're always in a group. Other dinosaurs, though, like Triceratops, most of the time we find one, maybe two animals together, but we don't find them kind of grouped together in kind of big death assemblages. So that's the kind of hint that we have, the things that we look for as paleontologists to tell whether or not animals live in groups or not.
Very cool. Go on. Sorry, is there more? I didn't mean to.
No, I was just saying, it can be a challenge.
It can be a challenge. And again, these animals lived millions and millions of years ago. And so you highlighted something early on in the broadcast too, which I love, which is that dinosaurs are separate from each other in time. This was hard for me to understand when I was the age of our students. But the example that I've always loved, which you can harp on a little more, is that T-Rex, which was one of the last dinosaurs, when the dinosaurs were wiped out, T-Rex was around to witness that. T-Rex is closer to us in time than T-Rex is to Stegosaurus, which is one of the other most famous dinosaurs. So how long did the dinosaurs rule? Like, can you give us a sense of scale compared to, say, mankind?
So dinosaurs lived for about 150 million years. Compared to us, we haven't even been here a million years.
So we think of ourselves as so permanent, such as essential part of the sort of landscape of planet Earth, and dinosaurs were the rulers for way, way longer than us. And I love highlighting that fact for classrooms. So thank you very much for that, Emily. Bayside, if you guys want to come on in, you can unmute your mic. We'd love to take your first question live, and then we'll take more from our YouTube friends. Come on in and take us away. Hey, guys. Do you have any questions for Dr. Bamforth? What do we think?
What's the first fossil you guys found?
Ooh, the first fossil you guys found at the Currie Dino Museum.
Oh, I think, well, a lot of the dinosaurs that we have, a lot of the fossils that we have here are Pachyrhinosaurus, which is like this creature on the back of the back wall here. Our museum is built where it is because of the proximity to a really, really big dinosaur bone bed that contains Pachyrhinosaurs. So I think the first fossils that were found in this immediate area were Pachyrhinosaurs. We also get a lot of duckbill dinosaurs as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Pachyrhinosaurus is kind of a special dinosaur for us.
We're really lucky in Canada that we have such a special place where you can literally go and find hundreds and hundreds of fossils. I mean, you open those drawers and that is unreal to have that many fossilized bones of dinosaurs. I mean, it's just crazy. I grew up sort of expecting that, thinking that was normal, and most places on this planet do not have assemblages like that. So really fortunate that we get to both find them and then feature them and showcase them in amazing programs like April Archosaur Absurdity and at the Dino Museum. Again, we've got some students that are fairly close by to you, so if you ever get the chance to head in person, it's a really, really special spot. Now, you talked about this bracket. Now, for people that are new to brackets, which most of our kids are, if you make your picks for round one, are you allowed to change in round two, or what's the deal? If your dinosaur loses the battle, what's the deal from there?
So if you guess incorrectly and your dinosaur doesn't win, or so your Archosaur doesn't win, they're not all dinosaurs this year, then you can just go You can, if you want, there's an option to actually write your own battles. And this is actually something that's built into the school curriculum. Is you can actually decide who you think is going to win, and you can write your own battles to figure out who's going to win. The battles that we write are kind of based again on science and the most likely outcome of these encounters, but we don't know, right? Like dinosaurs are extinct. A lot of paleontology has to do with imagination. And so if students or anyone thinks that there might be a different outcome, you feel free to write your own battles, and we would love to hear about them. Like if you write your own battles, definitely send them to us. Like we would love to share them with with groups on the website as well.
I love this program for it because you talked about, again, paleontology is a lot of imagination. We have to envision what these ecosystems look like. We have to envision how these dinosaurs hunted, lived, mated, laid eggs, etc. And so kids, you can get involved in this as well. Whatever your minds take you, you can join in something like April Archosaur Absurdity and have so much fun. For me, Cryodraken versus Spinosaurus would be like my ultimate final battle. And if that doesn't happen, I'm just going to invent it in my mind, because the idea of a flying biplane and like a giant crocodilian-like monster dino having a show off down is very, very cool. So thank you very much for highlighting that. We've got one now, no pressure, and we can erase this from the YouTube video. Do you have a favorite? Is there one that you want to win? No pressure. Is it Pachyrhinosaurus?
For this year?
Yeah.
I'm really torn, because I also really love Triceratops. That's also one of my favorite dinosaurs. Because before I came here and worked here, I actually worked in Saskatchewan, the province to the east of us, and Saskatchewan has a whole ton of Triceratops. So I dug a bunch of those things up as well. So I don't know, I'm a little torn. I'm pretty close to Pachyrhinosaurus, but there's also a soft spot for Triceratops as well.
Very cool.
And
one of those Ceratopsians.
What's that? Sorry.
One of those Ceratopsians. We want someone with a big head crest to have a battle win. I wish the best for you. Good luck.
Oh.
We've got one final question before we wrap up. Time flies when we have these broadcasts. If our students wanted to be a paleontologist, so they wanted to be you, what would they do? What would you recommend for them?
Yeah, really good question. And so paleontology is a science. So to be a paleontologist, you first have to be a scientist. So usually when people go into paleontology, they go to university to study either biology or geology or both. Because paleontology is sort of both sciences. It's kind of geology and biology kind of mushed together. So that would be my recommendation, is if you go to university, study biology and geology. There's a lot of great opportunities to study paleontology here in Canada. So the University of Alberta, for example, in Edmonton, the University of Toronto in Toronto, obviously, Carleton University in Ottawa. Like there's a lot of universities here in this country that will focus on paleontology. So it's actually a good country to be a paleontologist in. But again, if you're interested in paleontology, it is a science. So that's kind of where you want to put your focus in school, again, particularly in that biology, geology kind of area.
Very, very cool. I can hardly think of a better job than being a paleontologist. You certainly laid it out so well in our last broadcast. So please do, students, check out the last program with Emily. Some really, really cool stuff. Her field kit and more. All of that's on our YouTube channel. So much to explore and discover there. I'm going to bring up the Dino Museum website again, and specifically, of course, our April Archosaur Absurdity. So dinomuseum.ca/AAA-2025. Check it out. There's so much there, and I hope you will play along. Emily, thank you so much for giving us an awesome walkthrough today. I hope you get a bazillion students joining this year, including all our students joining today. And as you know, we wrap up every broadcast by bringing in our live classes to say thank you and farewell. And if you're at home on YouTube and you want to scream and yell and annoy the principal too, you are welcome to do that. You have our permission. But Bayside Public School, ring us out with a raucous thank you and goodbye. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye for now, guys.